This is the PR Podcast, a show about how public relations helps you tell your story to the world. We talk with great PR practitioners who have the skills, creativity, and just plain savvy to get their clients noticed. Now here's your host, Jody Fisher.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PR Podcast. I'm Jody Fisher. Thanks for joining us. Well, here we are at episode 150, and I am amazed that we have hit that number. Never would I thought that we would chart 150 shows and interview nearly 150 guests over the last 3 years. It's been amazing. You know, I started this in my garage, which is now the PR garage, but it wasn't even the PR garage back then. It was just my garage. And I thought, I really want to try hosting a podcast. And I thought about how I would do it. I had a YouTube channel that started out with me giving tips, kind of like what I do on TikTok now, but a lot more boring. And I was like, wow, that's going to be really awful. No one's going to listen to that. And I thought to myself, I know what I'll do. I will interview my friends. I will interview folks because I'm an old radio guy. Interviewing comes naturally to me. Let me have a show where I talk with my friends in PR, where I talk with my friends in news, and see what they think about how news gets made, about how we PR people can better interact with them. How we can better share information with our communities, with our constituencies, with our stakeholder groups, and maybe a little pie in the sky, but leave the world a little better and a little more informed place. And I'll get political. In a world of willful misinformation, we need to leave the world in a little better place. We need to have more information. We need to have more balanced information from sources that we trust. So that's why I started the PR Podcast, was just to have a little bit of fun, interview the friends that I knew in the news business, and maybe do 20 shows, 25 shows. I didn't even have an end game in mind. And here we are at episode 150. So thank you to everyone who has come on the show as a guest over the last 3+ years. Is it 3+ or coming up on 3? I'm not even sure. But I've made so many new friends through this show too. I've met people who I didn't know before I started this show, people who are a daily part of my life. And folks, you know who you are. It's been such a, I'll go #blessed on this. It's been terrific hosting this show. It's been terrific getting to know the people who come on this show. It's been wonderful for me hearing them dispense their knowledge. And that's the other thing that this show is all about. It's talking to people who have a professional perspective on what they do and want to share that knowledge with other people. Because like I said, this show is all about sharing knowledge and helping us do our jobs just a little bit better. Not only what we do, our work with our clients or our work with the people, the companies that we work for, but also how we interact with news professionals and how we interact with the world. We want to do a better job at public relations. We want to do a better job at storytelling, at news making. And that's what this show is all about. We have had PR pros, we've had marketing executives, we've had reporters and editors and news directors and photojournalists. And like I said, I have come to meet and form friendships with people I didn't even know before I started this podcast. So thank you to everyone who has played a part in this show. And thanks to you for listening every week, even if you haven't been a guest. And if you're listening and you haven't been a guest, you should be a guest. So send us a note. This podcast has grown steadily over the last 3 years from just a few friends, like I said, to hundreds of people around the world who are listening to this week in and week out. Some things that I've learned over the last 3 years, if I've learned anything, perseverance and consistency. I tape 1 or 2 episodes of this show every Friday afternoon. And I try to do that week in and week out. And sometimes I'll have more in the can, and sometimes I'll have less in the can, and we'll have them shows lined up for weeks. And sometimes I'm stretching and I'm trying to, figure something out. But perseverance and consistency in this podcast is what made this podcast a success. If it's a success, I hope you think it's a success. But perseverance and consistency in everything that we do. I think perseverance and consistency creates habits, and habits create success. Number two, believe in yourself. You know, I am a constant doubter of myself. I've always got that little voice in the back of my head saying, it didn't work out that way. It didn't work out right. You didn't do that right. You got to do it better. But you still got to believe in yourself if you're going to get anything done in this life, and if you're going to accomplish anything in this life. And we all can. I mean, that's the takeaway here too, is that we all have something to contribute. We all have something positive that we can give to our world, to the people around us, to the people that we love. So believe in yourself, and just keep moving. Connection and community. I talked about this earlier, but it means everything. You know, you got to find your people. And once you find your people, hang on to your people. Create that connection in the communities that you are in. Contribute positively to those communities. I'm a big believer in not necessarily being a world changer, but being a backyard changer. Take care of your backyard. Start with with your family. Start with your friends. Start with the people you touch every day. If you take care of that community, and every community takes care of its own community, it will then have the opportunity to reach out and take care of other communities. And less stuff will get broken, and less stuff will need to get fixed. So take care of your community and nurture those connections that you have. The other thing that I've learned in talking to so many people over the last 3 years is that change is inevitable, and that's what makes our jobs interesting. The AI conversation is a perfect example of that. People losing their minds over AI. AI is going to take our jobs. AI is going to get rid of writers. It's going to get rid of PR people. It's going to run newsrooms. You know what? It might. It might. And then again, it might not. You don't know. And that's the point. Change is inevitable. And that's what makes our jobs as PR professionals, as storytellers, as people who help other people interesting. We're constantly changing. And if you're in this business and you don't like change, you're probably frustrated right now. The people who embrace change are the people who are going to succeed. So embrace the change and make the future what you want it to be. We all have the opportunity to carve out our own version of reality. And I don't mean that in a news misinformation way. I mean that in a, make tomorrow what you want it to be. Go grab it by the throat, and go do the thing you want to do. Change is inevitable. And that's what makes our jobs interesting. And so that's why I'm going to keep doing this podcast, because I want to continue to hear from people who are listening, maybe people who haven't subscribed as I'm taping this, but who are going to subscribe in the future, people I'm going to meet in the future, people I don't know yet who are going to tell me something amazing and something amazing that is going to change your perspective on what you do every day. My phrase, who you are, what you do, why you get out of bed in the morning. Maybe they're going to contribute to changing that in a positive way. And so that's why I'm going to keep doing this podcast. And that's why I hope you continue to listen to this podcast. Now, I say this all the time, but I'm going to say it again. If you are listening to this podcast and you found it interesting and you have a perspective on what we are talking about and what you do, you're a PR professional, you're a newsroom professional, you have a role in how news gets made or how stories get told, pitch yourself to be a guest. We thrive on those pitches. Send an email to jody@jodyfisherpr.com or reach out on one of the socials, either to me at Jody Fisher or at the PR Podcast. Send us your ideas for your show on the PR Podcast. And we'll see if we can get you booked as a guest. Now, we don't take everybody. We take a lot of guests. I mean, we take the majority of guests. I think I can count on one hand the number of times that I've politely turned people down for a specific reason. But we want to hear the perspectives. We want to hear how you do your job so we can pass that along to other people, and maybe they can take a little something away and do their jobs better as well. But like I said, the most important thing I want to say here on episode 150 is thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I love doing this show. I love the community we've created here, and I hope we can keep it going for at least another 150 episodes. So thanks again for everyone for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the show. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at The PR Podcast, and send us a question or a comment. Our intro is by Christopher Appold. You can find him and his fantastic photography on Instagram at Christopher_APPOLDT. Check him out there and hire him for all your photography needs. Like I said, you can find me online at Jody Fisher on all the socials and on the web at jodyfisherpr.com. We'll see you next time, and thank you for listening to the PR Podcast.